Mr. Hickenlooper?
So I believe a woman has a right to make her own health care decisions. I believe, however, and certainly we all go through, I mean, even when you're and your wife are having a child, it's a decision everybody goes through, and you make your own decision on how to go forward. But I think that in the end, I believe in choice, right? I believe in a woman's right to make that decision with her doctor. And I think I've opposed personhood every single time it's been on the ballot. I think that part of family planning is allowing women to have choices and opportunities, and I mean regardless of your income, right? And we've done this for the last 4.5 years. I know I've been very criticized, but we provided free or almost free long-term contraception, right? So Norplants or IUDs that have allowed us to reduce in 15 to 25-year-old young women and girls, reduce unintended pregnancies by over 40%, and we have reduced in that same population, we have reduced abortion by 35%, right? A big part of making that work is to be able to provide these free or reduced, greatly reduced, almost free, these long-term reversible contraceptions upon request, right? So that women can have that choice no matter how poor their family may be, no matter what background they come from, that they have a right to make that choice. And to say that no tax dollars, no public money can be used for those medical the support to allow women to make those decisions, I think is difficult. It's hard for me to understand.
Mr. Beauprez?
John and his party seem to like to make this about trusting women somehow. John, what do you have to say to women who are widows, who have orphans because of parolees that you've let out of state correction, direct from solitary confinement? Because if a governor has an obligation, that obligation is to protect public safety. And as the Denver Post reported, in 1 year alone, 110 parolees were let directly out of solitary confinement into our neighborhoods. The year before that, it was 200. We've got a 50% recidivism problem in Colorado. If women have an issue, I think, an issue of trust, it's trusting in a government that somehow won't protect their public safety and their family's safety and their personal safety.
Mr. Hickenlooper?
You know, that is, and we talk a lot about who represents the Washington way and who represents the Colorado way, but to take a question like what we're discussing, a serious issue about women's rights to make decisions around their health care, and turn into a level of prison reform, which I'm happy to talk about, right? Let's have that discussion, right? I'm eager to do that. But wait. Congressman Beauprez, if you want to talk to me about widows, talk to me. My mother was widowed twice, and I grew up in a family with 3 older brothers, or 2 older sisters and an older brother, and I know what it's like to be in a family that's gone through that, and I'm very clear. And I have spent a lot of time with Lisa Clements and her children. They got married in the governor's mansion. They understand what they were doing. Tom Clements was part of that reform. And for you to make his murder part of a political gambit, I think is reprehensible.
Our next question.
Okay, no, not just yet. Governor Susan Thurston, her husband was killed by a parolee. She said, if they, meaning government, know They are not mentally fit to be out in public. They shouldn't let them out. On your watch, what reform has really happened? That people like Evan Ebel, who we knew was a member of a prison gang, we knew was so violent that he wasn't fit to live with other prisoners, he was in solitary confinement, that somehow there wasn't something, as Susan Thurston says, that government could do. What parole reform have you embraced? In fact, you didn't embrace, because the State House passed legislation that would have reformed the mandatory early release legislation you had originally signed, and it was blocked by your Democrat Senate, and you didn't intervene, so far as I know, and say, get that to my desk so we can fix this problem.
Okay. Well,
let me, I'll answer this question and we'll get back onto the format. I apologize, Steve. So when Tom Clement was hired, we had about the worst rate. I think we were the worst or second to the worst in terms of taking people and almost for convenience putting them into solitary confinement. A great many of these people have mental illness. Tom Clement was hired because he had experience with that. He was the head of corrections in Missouri. He was recruited by 6 other states. He chose Colorado, and we were grateful. We, at that time, would reduce 47% of our inmates would be released directly to the streets, just like Congressman said. And Tom Clement started working on that. We reduced that number in the first 2 years. And again, we've got 21,000 prisoners, difficult cultures to deal with. Reduced that number to 23%, cut the use of long-term solitary confinement by over 40%. And just for the record, for the last 6 months, right, no inmates have been released from solitary to the streets, right, directly into the population. So we have fixed that problem. It was not easy, but we have fixed that problem. Now we can get back on with your...
But what you fixed the problem with was by putting them back in a prison population.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's move on to our final question.